Welcome to EFFector from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. You're listening to an audio companion to our email newsletter, keeping you on the cutting edge of digital rights issues. I'm Christian Romero.
And I'm Hudson Honga. Later, we'll be talking to Lisa Femia, staff attorney at EFF, about our investigation into abortion censorship on social media. We'll also let you know about some of the upcoming opportunities to connect with EFF. But first, let's cover this week's top stories with the EFFector News Quiz. And I'm going to hit pause on that actually doing the news quiz, Christian, because just before we started recording, we got into what I found to be a pretty interesting conversation. I want to continue that here. We were talking about by the time you're listening to this, is going to be October. We were talking about our October media consumption. I was telling Christian that I watch basically like a horror movie almost every day in October. I've been doing that for a few years. And Christian, you said...
Oh, yeah. I aspire to watch as many horror movies as you do, but I am a very big spooky video game player during October. Well, throughout the year, but October I really aspire to play through a few.
I can't do that. I cannot do that. They're way too freaky. The immersiveness is just absolutely. I can, I'm a hopeless media addict, right? I'm just consuming all the upsetting news, various, movies and television shows, all this stuff all the time. But the horror video game thing is horrifying. It's way too, it's more intense. It reminds me when you're a little kid, and you see a movie and you see something horrible happen on the screen, right? Like a person dies and you get really upset. And then a parent or an adult or someone goes, "Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to watch this. It's going to be upsetting, but nobody really got hurt. It's fine." I need somebody to do that if I ever try to play a horror video game, because I do feel like I'm in immediate peril.
I mean, I draw a line at first person horror games. One of my favorite franchises is Resident Evil, and at one point they pivoted to first person horror, and it took me years to gain the courage to play one of those games. And I had a great time, but did I have to have my partner on the couch with me as my emotional support buddy? Totally. I think that's great. That's totally fine.
I think it was I must have tried the first Resident Evil game in the year 2000, right? And the first one, the fidelity is so low, right? It looks like a person who's made out of 4 cardboard boxes, and they don't even, if you even want to move them, they have what they call the tank controls, right? It's it feels like navigating a battleship to make this person walk down a hallway. But even then, I played it for maybe 10 minutes, something jumped out at me. It was the most upsetting minute ever happened to me while playing a video game. I'm like, no, I cannot do this. It was the middle of the day. I was this is way too freaky. I'm out.
I love that it just hit you and you're just nope, I'm done. Put it down, shut it down. I know what kind of person I am.
Well, a couple of years ago, I tried to play the Alien horror game. What's it called?
Oh my God. Isolation? There's no way. No.
I think I did 3 minutes. There were no aliens. There was nothing going on. I was just I'm just walking around the spaceship. I was this is not good. I'm not having a good time. I feel awful. I know something terrible is going to happen. But yeah, I cannot do those at all.
I can't do that game. I tried for an hour and I felt literal years coming off of my life just from the stress of the game. You have to draw a line somewhere. I draw the line there for sure.
So what are you going to be playing this October?
Oh gosh, I actually want to replay a few older games, some of those, cardboard box character games. There's a Parasite Eve is one of my favorites from the PlayStation 1. That one's really cool. There's a new Silent Hill game. I want to play that one too, but we'll see if I need my emotional support buddy for that one.
I think about as scary as I can do, I think is I'm going to probably replay Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is not scary at all. It's zero scary, but there's a vampires, Dracula's theme, so I think that'll at least be in theme.
Oh, you got the vibes for sure. And that game, I replayed it earlier this year. That game still rules. Still great.
All right. Moving on to the real terror. Let's talk about the news, Christian.
No.
All right. So, first question. What troubling surveillance tech team up did we recently highlight on our blog, warning that it could soon be tracking you from the sky?
Yeah, this is nightmarish. You're totally right. I'm pretty sure this was the Flock story, right? It's ALPRs and drones teaming up, which sounds great.
Yeah, right. That's absolutely correct. It's police surveillance drones. We know that drones being operated by cities has been on a big upswing across the U.S. And now the companies that make these products are increasingly talking about equipping them with automated license plate reader technology, meaning that these police drones could be tracking you around the city. Two charming forms of mass surveillance, even less charming together.
Yep. Maybe they cancel each other out. I don't know. Like two
I
wrongs make a right, I guess. I
No,
don't.
no, it's just
No, it's
worse.
awful.
I mean, Beryl wrote the blog. You know, what we said is that communities need to demand restrictions on how local police use drones, how local police use ALPR, and obviously we're going to need restrictions, written ones, solid ones, when it comes to ALPR enhanced drones, which are coming, are an exciting development to the people who like to watch others.
Not me. Couldn't be me.
All right, second question. What bipartisan legislation was EFF talking about when we said the ban has only resulted in turning over the platform to allies of a president who seems to have no respect for the First Amendment?
What a spicy line. This is on the TikTok ban, right? I don't know the legislation specifically.
Yeah, maybe I would give you a bonus point if you could remember the name of the bill, but yeah, this is about the TikTok ban, which, you know, EFF, we've opposed the ban from the very beginning, in that, like, the First Amendment is there to protect us from the government using its power to manipulate and silence speech. And it really seems that that's what we've ended up getting. We've been talking for a really long time about the dangers of this bill and how it was going to shake out. And now we see how it shakes out. A number of entities and individuals who are close with President Donald Trump are gonna buy it, and they're gonna get to control how that works. I believe it's Ellison, Andreessen Horowitz, and the Murdochs are part of the group that's purchasing TikTok.
This TikTok story just gets more and more like absurd as it goes on. I like forget about it and then it pops in the news and I'm like, oh yeah, oh no.
Right. Well, it's just like the whole time there's never been like a really concrete answer for exactly the danger that this legislation was supposed to correct, right? It's like, oh, if you're concerned about the way that TikTok and other platforms like have collected and used the data of people in the U.S., like, yeah, you should really like pass some laws about data privacy. You know, if you care about free speech, I don't know how this makes speech any freer to have it the platform now controlled by like a select cohort of people who are friendly with the federal government. It's all been nonsense, and that's sort of the result we're getting, isn't it? All right, last question. This summer, a Spanish-speaking country passed a disturbing package of surveillance laws, giving civil and military law enforcement access to troves of personal data and forcing every individual to turn over biometric information regardless of any suspicion of crime. What is the name of that country that we recently blogged about?
Is this Mexico? Is this the right one?
That's right. It's Mexico. They passed a package of laws to help create an interconnected intelligence system that's going to be called the Central Intelligence Platform. The idea is that basically all like intelligence and security agencies at every level of government are going to be able to use this to like access a really like disturbing and complete range of personal information from people. License plate numbers, biometric information, financial, banking, health records, property records, tax data, everything. And it's as disturbing as it gets.
Yeah, just like a whole profile of you in one centralized place. It doesn't sound great.
And the idea is right, and that there's not any sort of there's not much of a pretext that authorities would need to collect this information, not just from individuals, but from like any sort of third party that you might have business with. They're just going to be able to get that information. So that's watch out for that. God, I feel like I really front loaded it with a fun conversation and just went right into some really troubling developments.
Yeah, the through line is it's spooky season, both like for things that you want to enjoy and the world itself. It's all awful right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Maybe that's the maybe that's the small relief is that at least I'm not being pursued by zombies. I will say that many of these things, all the things we talk about, or at least many of them, are much more actionable than like being like trapped in like a haunted house, right? Almost all of these things, we're bringing attention to them so that we can do what we can to resist them, to thwart them, to increase oversight of them. Which, it's just there's just not much. It's just not very actionable being like pursued by like vampires or werewolves or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. If I'm in one of these video games, I'm just like hiding in a corner in hopes that nothing happens to me. But yeah, I appreciate in like Barrel's blog, it talks about how people can get involved to try and stop some of these like drones and license plate readers and stuff. A lot of the times, we do just need to like yell at people to get things done, which you should totally do.
Yeah, and I think that's where some of the most encouraging trends are happening is at the local and city level, is that all sorts of places are successfully standing up and saying, no, like our city doesn't need this. It like creates like enormous privacy risks and harms. Adopting this technology, like why are we bringing this like to our doorstep? And it's encouraging. Okay, that's it for the news quiz / video game discussion. Let's move on to our featured story. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for making time to chat.
Yeah, happy to.
So today we're talking about the Stop Censoring Abortion campaign. Can you tell me what this campaign is and how it got started?
Yeah, so several of us at EFF joined, like late last year, joined a meeting with a number of reproductive rights organizations, including Plan C, Women on Web, at the time, a researcher from Amnesty International, and they had brought together a group of content creators and other reproductive rights organizations that shared abortion information online. And they all went around and shared stories of their posts being taken down, their accounts getting flagged or having restrictions placed on them. And they saw this as something that was increasing in frequency and happening sort of directly because of the posts that they shared sharing educational abortion information. So we started discussing if there's a way that we could help, and decided it would be good to do a more sort of designated push to collect stories and really try to understand the scale and scope of what was happening. So we partnered with the coalition. It was Repro Uncensored Coalition, and we released a survey asking people to share their stories of if they'd had any sort of negative account actions on social media or posts taken down on social media because they posted abortion information. So we collected these over the course of the spring into the summer, up until sort of the end of the summer. And at that point, we had received nearly 100 submissions from people in the U.S. and abroad, influencers, clinics, educational researchers, just individual accounts, a whole variety of people. And they all had reported very similar stories of posts being taken down and their accounts being taken down, usually with a flag that they had posted something that violated usually Metas. It was mostly Meta platforms, policies on restricted goods and prescription drugs. And so we then decided to dig into these policies a bit more, talk with the people that this has happened, and we met with Meta. And we ended up finding that almost none of these posts violated Meta's policies per Meta's like own description of what their policies are, and sort of uncovered a sort of wide scale issue where content moderation practices and social media platforms are removing these educational posts describing, medication abortion and other resources for abortion and just taking them down.
Yeah. Can you give any sort of specific examples of the kind of posts that got taken down and what their alleged policy violations were?
Yeah. For example, where it's just, one individual advocate had posted, abortion pills are great to have around, whether you anticipate needing them or not. Plan C pills is an amazing resource to help you find reliable sources. It went on, just described a little bit more about what the shelf life is and where to store the pills. None of this is selling, buying, or trading in a pill, which is what the specifically violates, say, Meta's policies. We saw other ones come down that were just like, it's always safe to get an abortion. You can go here to learn more information. And in all these instances, it was linking to websites that just provided more information on what abortion pills are, or websites that linked to other places that could help you get abortion pills. These were not posts that were saying, click here to buy a pill, which would be admittedly against Meta's policies, because they do not let you just directly buy, sell, or trade pills. But that's not what these posts were doing. It's like, this is very valuable information for people who are getting increasingly cut off in the United States and in other countries from these resources, and not being able to just share information online about where to go find more information about how to just take a pill or like where to get a pill is sort of removing pretty vital information for people looking for this.
And you said that many of these responses that we received were specifically about Meta platforms. Can you talk more specifically about the platforms that, was it just Meta? Where did we see this come from?
Yeah, it was vast majority Meta platforms. Part of that is that Meta, we think, does more content moderation than some of these other platforms. So there are just more things that are, I think, slipping through the cracks there. But they also, they own a bunch of platforms. So it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Threads. But we did also see, we had a couple submissions from TikTok. We even had a submission from LinkedIn where someone's entire account was just, it was a birthing doula who also provided reproductive health information, and her entire account was just sort of removed for violating their policies, and they refused to provide her with more information. Yeah, I think it was TikTok, LinkedIn, and then Meta platforms, and the vast majority were Meta platforms.
So you had mentioned sort of post takedowns, but I understand in addition to those, we also heard about a troubling number of account suspensions. Is that right?
Yes. I think around a quarter of our submissions reported having their entire account suspended or permanently removed, or in a page or a group removed from the platform. And I think the most concerning part of this is that a lot of these instances that were reported to us, they happened, the account had received no prior warning, or they'd only had one flag, like one post flagged as violating community standards. And specifically on Meta, there are actually pretty specific guidelines for how account enforcement is supposed to happen. And the accounts are supposed to come down after, multiple violations. They say they'll give you one strike and it'll generally be just a warning. And repeated violations could result in the entire account coming down. But that's not what we were seeing here. I think the one exception that Meta makes for that is for very severe violations, but their examples for that include like child exploitation content, and content that violates their policy on dangerous organizations and individuals, which includes terrorist content. So if posts are coming down because of one violation, and still meeting Meta's policies, that would mean their content moderation system is flagging them as, violating the terrorist content or something like that. So we hope it's not that. The other issue, it could be that accounts are receiving multiple violations and flags and strikes, and just Meta is not telling them. So accounts don't know that there's anything wrong. And it could mean also that many more posts just describing information about abortion and providing educational information about abortion are getting flagged than we even realize. So in general, the fact that these accounts were coming down so quickly and after just sort of one violation is pretty concerning. It also shuts the entire account down from their followers. And we talked to, say, one account, Women Help Women. They have tens of thousands of followers in both the US and abroad. And they were only able to get their account back after sustained public push and even an article in the New York Times. So
I think that gets on to the next point, which is that, right, we know now about the post takedowns, even account suspensions, and then the question is, like, if this does happen to you for a non-existent platform policy violation, what recourse do you have? And I understand that it often took a personal connection with someone at the platform to get these things restored.
Yeah, this is what we found. So many of the stories that were reported to us said they appealed to no avail, despite us looking at their content that they posted and looking at Meta's policies and discussing Meta's policies with Meta and seeing that there was no violation. And the accounts that were successful oftentimes did go through a personal contact at Meta. And that's not a scalable or sustainable way to deal with appeals, especially when you are facing what appears to be a sort of consistent problem in content moderation for many, many different users sharing this type of content. And I think, the other thing that we found was that besides a personal connection, it needed to be an account sometimes with like Women Help Women with tens of thousands of followers that could get sort of media pressure or other public pressure. But if you're just an individual user, that's also not really an option for you as well.
So you touched on this earlier, but I was hoping you could expand on it a little bit about the sort of stakes of what's happening here, right? Maybe it just sounds like it's some, internet posts, but what makes it so important that these voices aren't being silenced right now?
Yeah, so especially here in the U.S., after Dobbs, which overturned Roe v. Wade a couple years ago, states started passing very restrictive abortion laws and abortion bans. And this means that places women could usually go to get reproductive health care information and information about abortion, like their doctor's office or a clinic, is no longer an option for a lot of people in these states, and people looking to get advice and resources have been cut off from those in person. And so they've been turning to websites and to social media platforms and to these amazing nonprofit organizations that put out this information. And it's especially concerning because Meta has told EFF, Meta has told Amnesty International that organic educational content about abortion does not violate their policies and should not be coming off the platform. So it's, cutting people off from this vital information and also not even something that should be coming down. So
big takeaways. What seems to be happening on these platforms and what should platforms be doing?
Yeah, so we are actually about to publish next week our calls to platforms, which includes sort of after talking with all of our various submitters and analyzing these policies, we sort of came up with some overarching things that we think that platforms should be doing. And some of that involves clearer and more understandable policies. Say Meta, for example, has a lot of very vague rules. I think, say on their account disabling, you could just receive a content restriction for a couple days or a permanent deletion after repeated violations, but it depends on the severity and the context, and none of that is defined. And so users are left not totally knowing, like, is my post considered severe enough? And again, I think a lot of these posts are not even violations, so this shouldn't even come into play. But there are lots of little areas in which it is not clear what's going to happen. We also wrote about a number of accounts getting shadow banned and having their content clearly like deranked and hidden in the algorithms. And there's just no transparency about when and how that happens. And I think sort of coupled with that, we also really need them to enforce their rules consistently and fairly. Because right now we are seeing a bunch of these rules just appear to not be met over and over and over again. And that probably means there is some flaw in the content moderation system that's happening. And we'd like them to look into that, address that problem, and make sure that their policies as stated and as written are being enforced in that way. And that they're being enforced equally against all the different types of content makers and types of content. And then I think on the like enforcement side, there also should be real meaningful way to appeal these decisions. Because again, right now, people just going through a connection at Meta is not something that is a reasonable solution for many, many people. And then I think finally, we've talked about this repeatedly in other contexts as well, as we just think that they should expand human review, and automated systems really cannot handle the nuance of sensitive issues like reproductive health and advocacy. They'll misinterpret words, miss important cultural or political context, wrongly flag, legitimate posts as dangerous. We've seen accounts that had pill, for example, in the name. And as soon as they just changed the name of their organization to no longer have pill, it was okay. But that's not actually meeting the text of the policy. And that really shows the sort of limits of pure automated decision-making in this space.
Well, we've been talking about access to vital medical information, but I did want to ask, what's the last thing you learned about online that brought you joy?
Yeah. I think I was actually reading yesterday about, this is like sort of a different context here, but it's all about education. I was reading sort of yesterday about how Maryland schools have been improving literacy rates over the past couple of years, and they actually borrowed some things that and strategies and a superintendent that had actually come from states in the South. And I got really heartened reading about a bunch of states improving child literacy rates. And that I think that we are, people are really like sitting down and talking and thinking about what works. And I think, literacy rates in the classroom will translate to literacy rates online as well. And that is like, gave me a lot of hope for kids to hear that. So,
well, I'm glad to hear it, Lisa. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
And now, events. Christian, what opportunities to connect with EFF are coming up?
Well, we're partying in the Pacific Northwest this month with 2 member speakeasies. First on October 15th in Seattle, and second on October 25th in Portland. Members can find an invite in their inbox or reach out to events@EFF.org for more details. These will be a fun, casual gathering for you to get to know some of EFF staff and your fellow digital freedom supporters. And from October 27th through the 29th, we'll be back at TechCrunch Disrupt in San Francisco. Be sure to find us in the Expo Hall, where you can stop by our booth to chat with our team about the latest in the fight for privacy and free expression online. Finally, legal internship applications are now open until November 1st for the spring 2026 intern class. Visit the opportunities page under the About section on EFF.org to learn more about how to apply.
Thanks, Christian. Well, that's it for this week's EFFector Audio Companion. Thanks, everyone, for listening in.